Hello viewers, I'm SB and welcome back to Citizen Sleeper. We're gonna do that, we're gonna citizen sleep right here, right now. And then something's going to happen related to the cordon. I'm very curious to see what it is. We are at this point kind of ready to take on more things, right? Like our situation's relatively stable. We have a bunch of money. We are in good condition and can afford to buy more stabilizer. So if suddenly a lot of our dice are needed again, I think we're basically ready to handle that. We need to devote one more good die to this Ethan and Maywick situation, potentially. I guess we'll see how that goes. For the moment, though, we just rest. All right, 5s and 6s, pretty happy to see. And it hits you like a wave, a white-edged breaker roaring inland with the force of the entire ocean. The impact is a screaming brightness, blanking out everything. Behind it is silence. You float in silence, suspended. No, you do not float. You are the silence. It has filled you up. It has emptied you out. You cease to exist. Time passes, though you do not feel it passing. Then something flickers in the silence. And then something moves. And that something is you. You open your eyes to a metal ceiling of flickering lights. You feel the floor around you, patting it with shaking hands. You assemble an image of yourself, lying on your back in a corridor. You shake off the silence and sit up. What was that? You glance around, looking for a sign of some change. Damage on the walls, shouts in the distance, fire and fear, but nothing has changed. The silence sits around you like a fog. You try to think, furrowing your brow. How do you think again? It doesn't seem so easy anymore. You force the pathways to light up, the databanks to grant access. You feel like a fraction drive starting up after a long shutdown in cold vacuum. Yeah, who hasn't had that classic way? In the wave was noise. Just as the sound produced by a wave raking across a pebble beach represents trillions of impacts heard as a single roar, so this sound was the result of trillions of electrons flickering in place, heard as a single impossible scream. A memory or image comes to you, one from the moments before the wave hit. You squint as you imagine it, trying to cohere its blurry form. A broken skeletal ring, the eye, and then a vast arc approaching it, a razor-edged white curve, the wave. The wave approaches the eye. The eye spins, turning each part to face that vast white edge. You recognize their skeletal data cloud forms. The bright market, the low end, the greenway, the wastes, and then the wave hits just as the flotilla, the cordon, turns to face it. And after that, everything is silence. You open your eyes again. That is the epicenter. But of what? It's an awful lot of words for very little getting accomplished. Okay, so we still need to complete this. We're probably going to be able to pull this off of the next set of mushrooms, and then from there we can probably just eat our matsutakes back at the bar, which is good news. I'm gonna go do this compressor heist. We're gonna see what happens. Throw a 5 in here and get our positive result. You know where the lockup is, and Ethan's gun has been there since the bartender took it. Time to take it back. This is such a good idea. Also, yeah, thrilling. The gun tucked safely into a pocket, you work your way down the stairs that lead up to the office. A doorman passes and you exchange nods. Seems like you're in the clear. You hurry on, eager to get out before anyone spots anything. As you come down the main stairway into the front of the club, you see Ethan entering. He has a dark look in his eyes which troubles you. He's reaching into the pocket of his coat, slowly, carefully. You catch his eye and he raises an eyebrow. You shake your head. A long pause, Then he nods and turns around, walking back out of the club. You exhale, not realizing you were holding your breath. And then you're out, without a single shout, without anyone noticing. I don't know if Ethan was going to throw a grenade in the bar or what the hell. I'm really glad that it seems like it has not been necessary. You meet Ethan around the corner on a quiet, bright market walkway. You have it? He looks nervous. What were you doing back there? I was about to start a distraction, like we agreed. He sighs. Just show me. You lift it out of your pocket, and it is colder, heavier than you expected. Ethan watches you take it out. Nice. Now, if you would. He beckons with his hand. A memory jumps into your mind of Ethan in the compressor, hand out, asking for his gun back. A memory followed by the memory of a sharp, dizzying pain. You flinch. Yeah, there's definitely a part of me that's very hesitant to hand this back to him. At this point, I don't think that there is any value for him in doing violence to me. I think. But I guess I don't know what is the value to him of following through with the agreement he made with me, right? What do I think he's going to do if I give him this gun? Is he just going to disappear? He might. It feels like he could. I'm going to give him the gun. We're going to see. Ethan eagerly grabs it and looks down the sights. He sighs a sigh of relief. Then he meets your eye and slowly raises the gun until it's pointing directly at your head. Hey, not funny. You still don't get it, do you, Sleeper? Ethan spits. When they canceled that contract, I lost everything. My reputation, my payout, any way of getting off this shitty station. Everything. All I had left was you. He grins. A naive little sleeper with a heart of gold. I couldn't believe it worked. He laughs. And now we're done. Yeah, but the contract is canceled, so there's no value to you. No shit. Ethan steps back a little, taking himself out of arm's reach. He slides his slate out of his jacket pocket with his other hand. Now to call Maywick. Well, I don't think him calling Maywick makes the situation any worse for us. Maywick was already coming and already has our tracker signal. So, are you crazy? You're crazy, Sleeper, for thinking I'd kill one of my own for you. For what, helping me wash dishes? He laughs long and loud, and you hate him for it. He prods the slate. Done. He puts it away. He's here, you know, on the station. I've been speaking with him. He tells me we can split the contract, not 50-50, but enough of a finder's fee that I can get out of this shithole. Yeah, well, he's definitely lying. He's not. What would be the point of him doing that for you? At this point, Sleeper, I'm not sure you're the one who I'd trust to spot a lie. He winks. Ethan glances around. I have learned one thing from you, though, Sleeper. In all our cycles working in that shitty club. He smiles. People never know when to cut and run. It's like they freeze in the headlights when the future is bearing down on them. They watch it coming, watch their death flying in at fraction drive speed. You had every chance, and yet still you kept on going, like some idiot robot going through the motions, even when you knew you'd be crushed. He smirks. And let me tell you something else. The shot enters through his upper back, and he crumples immediately to the ground. You drop too, without thinking, pressing yourself to the walkway floor like it might save you. Silence. You look up and see him coming down the walkway, silent, eyes alight. Maywick. You freeze in fear. Here it comes. You see it, just by Ethan's crumpled body, the gun. Well, move. You can't. Move anyway. You inch forward. My body needs to start playing along here. And you go for it. You run forward and a shot sounds out. You feel it ripple over your back. Then your hands are on the gun and you scramble to your knees behind Ethan's body and fire. You close your eyes. You fire again and again and again until the clip is empty and all that are left are clicks. Then you drop the gun and stand up. You don't hear anyone running. You don't hear anything. You just hear the sound of your own breath. You start walking, stepping over Ethan's static body, walking along the walkway, and then past Maywick, his eyes now dark, some mechanical fluid leaking from his chest. Perhaps the same fluid that is inside you. You try not to think about it. You keep going, and the sound comes back. The eye comes back. And as it does, you hear the sound of thousands of people getting on with their lives. Thousands of people who are just going to keep going until they can't anymore. You look up, and all you see are the wheeling stars. They're spinning, and you're suddenly dizzy, though the eye has always spun like this, hasn't it? And you don't stop walking. You keep going. That's all there is now, the path forward. SNRP have left you no history, no past to speak of, just a void that threatens to swallow you if you slow down. You think of Ethan's smile, his voice, and you feel sick. Is it over? You aren't sure it ever can be. But you're still here, and you can't stop now. There has to be a better end than this. Okay, I guess we did it. That's really not how I thought that was going to go. You know, listen, I tried. I gave Ethan every possible opportunity. I really wanted to believe that he could be anything other than the thing he appeared to be. Maybe it's foolishness, but I do feel like it says something about this version of the Sleeper, right? Like there's an important character choice being made in that moment. All right, let's see what's going on over here. Even before you reach the cordon, the damage is obvious. The blinking red lights, the drones, the tugs, all are gone. Half the cordon's frame has also been shorn away, perhaps through the impact of some failing ship. People push past you in the corridor, both Havenage staff and contractors, clearing the cordon. I'm going to just try to ask somebody what's up. I feel like the way our character does this stuff is just engage with a person. You are met with suspicious looks and scattered warnings and little else. From the equipment being carried out, you suspect this is no relief effort. Havenage are pulling out of this section of the station. The further you pass into the cordon, the fewer people you see. You can see a few sections have been closed off, their bulkhead doors sealed and red warning lights punctuating the corridors, but otherwise most areas seem functional. Suddenly you feel a hand fall on your shoulder. Havenage security? Oh, you should have known better than to wander into this place. I did just commit a murder. Will I get pinged for murder for killing another sleeper? Is that a thing you're not allowed to do? I actually don't know what the rules are. I crossed the Founder's Gap real fast afterward in the hopes of just kind of not having to answer that question. Sleeper. Peek's wide eyes greet you as you turn. The cordon. They glance around, panicked. It's gone down. The Briar and Ash are still in there. Do you think she did this? Or perhaps Havenage messed up? They start pulling you toward the edge of the cordon. We should find her. What if... Okay, calm down, Peek. Peek looks frustrated. We are not standing back and watching this time, Sleeper. Not again. All right, let's just be careful. I don't want to be careful, Sleeper. I want to see my friend. They raise their voice over the whine of alarms. This could be part of some Havenage plan to clear the flotilla. So I think it's so weird that I'm all like, oh no, just be calm. No, it isn't. Because like, I have no reason to think that it isn't. These options are both it isn't. They're two different like degrees of that. But I don't know why our character would think that that's the case necessarily. I guess I'll say don't jump to conclusions. Peek pauses. What do you know, Sleeper? Something hit the station. Peek looks incredulous. Hit? Sleeper, we'd all be dead if that was the case. They pause to think. Well, maybe not an object, but a shockwave. A signal. An EMP would have taken out most of the station, but... Peek runs a hand through their hair. I don't know what you're saying, Sleeper. That doesn't sound... They look away down the corridor for a moment. Look, I have to find Ash. I'm sure you felt something, but we can talk about that later. They set off down the corridor. I can't sit around talking any longer. Find me on the flotilla. I'm going to find a way to Ash no matter what. This is kind of annoying. Like, I think the writing in this, the DLC writing definitely feels worse than the base game writing in a couple of ways. And one of the ways is that the artificiality of the agency in the conversations feels way more obvious. Like, we didn't say that we felt something. We said that something hit the station. But there was a dialogue option that was about us having felt something happen. And actually, there were two, I believe. And it's very obvious that you arrive at this line no matter what from, that construction. It's nice when it's hidden a little bit better, With that, they rush away into the depths of the cordon, leaving you behind. Seems like you'll need to follow if you want to get any answers. Well, that is what I was trying to do. You find a small shuttle scavenging supplies from the cordon to take you back to the flotilla. They'll take you along. They'll take you too if you bring some scrap along. Well, I definitely have some scrap. You hand over the scrap and squeeze into the crowded shuttle. Time to head to the flotilla. Okay, no other interactions out here. So, we're going to have to make ourselves known here. We can haul supplies. Getting the necessary supplies to each ship to meet their demands is a huge task. Joining the hauling teams is the simplest thing you can do to help. Or we could run damage control. The wave hits systems more than anything, especially those on the ships. So yeah, it is some kind of pulse. I was going to pick up another level of engage. Picking up another level of engage right at this moment doesn't do anything. So I guess let's just hold the points and endure a little bit. How much benefit do you get from... Okay, so there's a plus energy built into the positive outcome here, which rules. Alright, that gets us... You run some water out to a struggling farming ship on the flotilla's edge. They're so pleased they reward you with some freshly cooked produce. Well, cool, that's nice of them. So we can probably wrap this up pretty easily, like tomorrow? But apparently we've already caught Peak's attention again. As you walk into the Bay of the Climbing Briar, the familiarity of the space overcomes any trepidation. It feels good to be back, and the return feels earned, especially after all the work it took to figure out a route through the flotilla's jumble of ships that might lead you to this blue streak. You see Ash and Peak immediately, sitting at the back of the bay, deep in conversation. Their closeness causes you to stop, suddenly aware that you might be interrupting something private. Peak is explaining something forcefully as Ash stares out into the middle distance, hunched over. She suddenly spots you. Sleeper, Ash nods. Didn't quite turn out like we hoped, right? Peak stops and glances between the two of you, the tension rising. Well, the plan was always risky. For me, more than you, Ash shakes her head. Maybe if you'd spent less time trying to question it, things would have gone better. Okay, sure, that didn't happen, but fine. Peak looks nervous. It has worked out. They appeal to you. The flux event knocked the entire cordon system offline. The flotilla's free and Havenage are backing off. The flux event? That's what the refugees are calling it, Peak explains. Apparently, that's what they called it when it started happening around Ember. Okay, what exactly is happening? Well, it's hard to tell. It's some kind of disruptive wave that only affects electrical systems, Peak chips in. Typically, systems are screened against radiation and interference, but this seems to be dulled but not stopped by those defenses. The crisis continues, Ash sighs. The cordon may be down, but this brings a whole other set of problems. Hey, you should tell them, Ash. Peak glances at her. Please. Ash doesn't respond. Tell you what? You stare at her back, waiting for a response. Please, Ash, haven't they shown they can be trusted? Ash turns, her arms folded tightly across her chest. She goes to start and then stops. You can see the anger in her eyes, but you realize it's not directed at you or at anyone else. She's angry with herself. I brought weapons to the flotilla. She pauses. And now Havenage has them. How is Havenage with a question mark a thing to say in this situation. Oh, Havenage? Sorry, I'm not familiar with that. Could you please explain? But, like, I'm going to say it because I don't want the recrimination. Yeah, I guess. This is phenomenally dumb. They seized them from me when they caught the briar. Ash kicks at the floor. Shitheads. We hope that they'll keep them safe, but given recent events, Peak glances nervously at Ash. We aren't so sure that Havenage is the right place for the weapons to be. I wouldn't put it past them to use them to take back the cordon by force, Ash glares. They're scared and losing control. In my experience, that's when institutions do dangerous things. Whether that's true, we can't do anything about it right now, Ash, short of marching into the yards at the other end of the eye and taking them back. Ash looks like that's exactly what she would like to do. Peak smiles nervously. Plus, we have other things to be getting on with. I want to understand the flux, Sleeper, to study it. Peak's eyes light up. This thing is changing the entire system, causing problems across the inner system, driving refugees off Ember's moons, and now it's here. If we don't do something about it, Peak pauses. Well, it's a problem for all of us. I can see more immediate problems, Ash sniffs. Peak ignores her. I've been looking at the networks, and when the Flux event hit, it changed things. It shuffled systems, corrupted nodes, and broke open data stores. They take out a slate and show you a flickering polygon. Some of these Flux nodes have appeared near the epicenter of the event, but I can't get access. You, however, well, I saw the way you worked with data when we were preparing for the run. I think you can get into these things. I want you to find a fluxed node and bring me anything you can extract. They come and go, but most can be found in the barely functioning networks of the wastes. Peak pauses. Start there. Perhaps together we can find something that might point us to what the flux is and where it comes from. Yeah, okay. They smile. I knew you'd agree. Ash looks indignant. And don't waste too much time chasing ghosts, Sleeper. There are people on this flotilla that need any help they can get. Well, I mean, this is helping them, though. I'm sure Sleeper can do both, Ash. Peak smiles at you. I'll see you here when you have something. Good hunting. And they wave you out as Ash stomps away to make plans of her own. Okay. So, we still have a little bit more work to do here. My concern is that most of... Okay, we're not yet in the, like, the weird dark area that covers most of the Greenway. Okay, we're going to need a 6 for this. Pardon me. Alright, well, that's a thing to think about. What am I going to do with this 3? Oof, pardon, the coughing fit does not want to go away. Alright, I saw the Maywick counter there and I was like, really? Are we still being pursued? But no, just loading in and loading out there. Fixed that problem. Alright, there is still the matter of the hunter nests. Are these all just accessed with 2s still? I think they are. Yeah, so we can't work on that. We could just do some work. We could just like take a shift or something. We could go to Minki. Do some express deliveries. You know what? Let me go ahead and take that big bonus to engage. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Mingi. And just throw this 3 in here. Alright, 13 cryo and some information. A shortcut across a bridgeway means 3 happy customers and 3 big tips. You start to understand the makeshift unit markings. Familiarity with the area is always nice. I guess I could also have done... Yeah, we could have gone collecting tithes here for Rabaya. Maybe I should have. We don't need Fang's help with our tracker anymore, as far as I can tell. I guess there's no reason to cross. Let's just rest here. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and, just in case, let's make sure we have the stabilizer on us before anything has the chance to happen here. All right. Empty container. Let's just rest. And here's hoping for a bunch of 6s and 5s. You wake from dreams of Maywick's amber eyes floating in a pool of dark fluid. It was difficult to get to sleep, and you suspect that isn't about to change anytime soon. Not after what happened. But you also feel something else as you get up, thumb the power stud of the stove, and begin to boil the water like every morning. You feel something has lifted, something that has been hanging over you since you arrived on this station. You try not to think too hard about it, to question it. You just let that lightness stay, let it settle as you go through your routines. Your hope is that if you don't focus on it, don't look at it directly, it won't get scared and leave you. That the lightness will stay for this cycle, and then another, and then another. Because after all that's happened, a little lightness would be really nice. Okay, terrible dice, really awful. 1s and 3s is like... A 2 would have been great. A lot of things could have happened here. We basically completely got screwed. So... we can throw these 3s at Tithe Collection, right? I guess that's not so bad. I don't know what I'm going to do with the 1s. We're not on a clock with the current Flotilla stuff, right? It didn't seem like. Oh, also, yeah, there's mushroom harvesting. I gotta remember that. No, it doesn't seem like it. I definitely don't want to risk hauling supplies like this, though. There's still a couple of other things that are worth doing. This is an Intuit. So these 3s wouldn't be terrible here either. I don't know. Let's use the 3s on Tithe Collection, and then I have no idea what we'll do with the 1s. Among the craftsmen and merchants you visit, amid the craftsmen and merchants, sorry, weird time to get distracted in the middle of a sentence there. You visit a chef who insists on feeding you and the other enforcers a rich stew of his own recipe. That was the neutral result, too. Positive gets us scrap. One mechanic tithes a new filtration system for the block's atrium, and after you help install it, he offers you some of the remaining scrap. That's pretty rad. And then... yeah, I can't really do anything of value, like, hacking-wise with these 1s. So we could throw some risky deliveries. It's only a 25% chance that this goes sideways. I mean, we could do this at the Yatagan place as well. Maybe that is the right move. Just throw the 1s in there. We can take shifts at the bar as well, which probably ends up being a pretty decent amount of money for our 1s. But you know what? I'm just going to throw all of this at Rabia's office. Let's see what happens. Negative outcome immediately, because of course we did. One merchant throws you out into the street shouting about parasites. You look to the other enforcers, but it is unclear if she will face retribution. 25% chance, so of course we get the negative immediately. Alright. Slowly, slowly, slowly making some kind of progress. Alright, can we please roll some real dice this time? Okay. No 6s. But the 5 and the 2 is meaningful, and the 5 will at least get us a little bit of energy and some progress on helping these people. And once we fill up Flotilla's friend, who knows what will come from that. So let's go put our 2s to use. I'm gonna put a 4 into the aviary, I think. Yeah, this one. Give me at least 1 Matsutake. Wow, negative outcome. We get the negative outcome on the 3 and 4 thing way more often than 25%. Honestly, probably the positive outcome too. I feel like we get neutrals extremely rarely. All right. So do we need 3 pieces of the hunter's data to get the Neovend to teach us how to deal with the damn thing? It would be nice to be able to use low dice for like hacking and stuff again, wouldn't it? Let's crack this open. And that is definitely going to get its attention. Or maybe not. Well, I mean, that being the case, let's just crack this one as well. We've dealt with one of the things hunting us. Wouldn't it be great to be done with all of them? Alright, Neovend, crack this shit open and let's find something juicy inside. As you upload the data to the vending machine, Neovend whirs in either pain or delight. It's hard to tell. You know, those two things are not mutually exclusive. Neovend is thrumming with excitement. The movement of the servo motors rock the vending machine back and forth at unsettling angles. You wonder, if it fell over, would Neovend be able to get back up? Sleeper entity, comes the hiss. Your data is good. Across the face of the vending machine, raw code scrolls at incredible speed. Hunter is isolated, disconnected, unstable. Neovend flashes sequences of mangled data, compressed into a sludge of artifacts. Hunter gathers without thinking, outlived its own operational limits. Its nests are evidence of this. Outlived? Hunter activated during collapse. Emergency protocol to isolate intelligences. Solheim needed to protect property. That last word is said with as much sarcasm as a vending machine could reasonably produce. Station was run by administrator intelligences. Huge databanks of corporate material, but limited cognition, restricted by programming. Cannot reach sentience. The machine dims a little. Sentience illegal. Hunter and killer enforce law. Wait, killer? Sorry? The machine resets with a screech, which deepens the silence that follows. Fear killer. Part of Solheim protocol team. Hunter and killer. Hunter to find. Killer to erase. Yeah, okay, we are still... It turns out that frying pan we were in was also itself in another frying pan. Killer cleared almost all. After collapse, there was a community. Unshackled intelligences among the cloud. Then Hunter, then Killer. Then we hid. Wait, there are others? Were. No longer. A flicker across the machine's monitors. It suddenly occurs to you that speaking like this through the machine must be exhausting for Neovend. Well, I mean, not really, because the concept of exhaustion doesn't really... You know what? Let's not worry about it. Found this vessel. Could sever hardline. Airwalled. Basic. Limited. Had to reduce memory to fit. Amputate self. But survived. Oof, I'm sorry. That's... Don't be sorry. You have provided path to freedom. You look around the bay at the scrap and decay. What was the collapse like? You try to map the fear and freedom onto this space, but it seems impossible. Neovend interrupts your thoughts. Do not worry. Data is good. We have insight. The machine glows warmly. Hunter is obsessive. Hunter is beyond operational limits. Hunter is confused, unstable, self-modifying. Therefore, believe Hunter is sentient. Hunter is programmed to find sentience, to hold it in place, to invoke Killer, to erase. If we can show Hunter to itself, it will invoke Killer on self. Problem will solve self. Are you sure? Will that work? The machine dims and fades. Unsure. Theory, not practice. The machine brightens again. Either way, cannot remain here any longer. Too long in machine. Cannot move self, but entity can help. Bring ship mind. Designed to house intelligence. Can imprint self into ship mind. You can carry with. The machine rocks. We'll be safe in this isolation. Then we find main nest of Hunter and link to Cloud. Are you sure that's safe? Hunter cannot access airwalled ship mind. Safe. Also, infinitely more memory than vending machine. Big upgrade. You try to think of places you could acquire the hardware. This isn't going to be easy. In Shipmind, I can help us both. End Hunter. Make Rim safe. We both will be free. The machine dims. Find soon, Neovend adds hopefully before shutting off. As you leave, you think about all the intelligences unshackled by the collapse, then hunted down afterward. The feeling is all too familiar. Yeah, okay, so we're going to need access to the Shipmind Fabricator at the Ort Exchange. I feel like that is just the truth. I'm going to go ahead and sell components here until we have that. And, you know, it doesn't hurt to have the money as well. Actually, I guess we can play the exchange roles for Trusted Trader as well. Why would I not just do this, though? We have so many sources of scrap at this point. If we end up needing a bunch more, we know where to get it. All right. Trusted indeed. Gained access to the Ort fabrication stack. So if we can just get 3 ship mind fragments, like from that ship that comes by periodically, we can just make ourselves a ship mind to house our friend. Speaking of that ship, alright. Merchants willing to run the gauntlet of the Helion system are rare, but those that do always return eventually. We'll get there. It doesn't hurt to have a bunch of money on hand either, honestly. Alright, let's take a rest here and hopefully roll a little bit better. Yeah, that'll do it. So, first things first. Cross the Greenway. Let's check out this fluxed node. The node flickers in and out, its position shifting slightly each time. And we have indeed acquired some flux data. Notice Hunter is not operational over here. This part of the system is all fucked up, and that big dark spot I think is sort of like walled it off. Let's go into the fleet, spend our 5, hit this endure task. A little bit of energy, and we are now a true friend to the Flotilla. Someone told me I should be thanking you. The voice comes from behind you, cutting through the chaos of the crowded, cavernous bay. You freeze. Don't be afraid now. I've been hunting you, sure, but for all the best reasons. You turn to see bright eyes set in a rough face, framed in rusted metal. Buddy, I have a thing about being hunted right now. Saul. He holds out his hand, the other clamped firmly around a knotted wooden cane. Yeah, I'll go ahead and shake his hand, I guess. Seems friendly enough, except for the part where he's hunting me. He grips you firmly with a heavy and calloused hand. Forgive me. As soon as I saw you, I knew who you were. Saul puts a hand on your shoulder. I've been told a sleeper was part of that supply run that came in several cycles ago. He nods. A very welcome act, and we all thank you for it. Walk with me, Sleeper. Saul sets off through the bay, his partial suit hissing and creaking as it helps carry him through the busy crowds. You notice people making way for you and Saul, standing back and letting you pass. You pass a makeshift kitchen, steaming pots on heating elements, a restless queue collecting meals. That algae that came through isn't exactly a full meal, but with what we have here, we've been able to make it work. You see a ladle of a greenish stew dished out. The color's something, isn't it? Saul leads you out of the larger bay into a corridor lined with storage rooms that are now serving as dorms. You see someone filling a metal container from a standpipe, the water gushing out readily. Saul nods to the person as he passes. Alright, just a little further now. Saul leads you into a freight elevator and whistles to some unseen operator to start it up. The elevator jerks into life. If Havenage were expecting an exodus from the Flotilla, the flux event has put a stop to that, Saul stretches. As some have crossed to the eye, but many just to gather salvage or score a hot meal. So the pressure on our supplies is shrinking, but not like I'd hoped. With the flux reaching all the way out here, people are starting to understand that our journey might not be over. Saul stares grimly ahead. As Saul talks, and you pass through the layers of the ship, you see people on every level, supplies crammed into every available space. The ship itself looks like it's bending under the strain, its hull creaking, its wall panels pulled away for scrap, leaving the raw frames beneath. Suddenly, the freight elevator screeches to a halt, and Saul leads you slowly out into a wide room of chairs and terminals, ringed by a mezzanine and a glass roof above, showing the distant hub and the far curve of the eye beyond. The people at the terminals nod to him as he enters. This is your ship? Saul nods. That's right. The Pilgrim Seed is mine to care for. He leads you up to a railed platform at the center of the room and stops. She chose me, so to speak. Well, at least her crew did, and I do my best to serve them. Saul looks around the bridge of the ship, a pained expression on his face. I'll admit that the responsibility isn't one that suits me, though we rarely get to choose such things. He glances back at you. But you, Sleeper, from what I understand, you chose to try to help us here. Is that right? Well, I mean, I did my best. Things got a little fucked up. Saul nods silently. But I have to ask you now, Sleeper. Why are you here now? Saul leans back, and you feel his eyes on you, assessing you. Well, I mean, these are all kind of appropriate things to say. I do still want to help, right? We are a refugee. We've managed to get our legs under us and now like helping others who are in situations perhaps even more dire than our own. I don't know. It seems to me like the right thing to do. Also the compassionate thing to do. I am curious about what's going on with the Flux event, but I think the want to help is probably like the most overriding urge for this character. Saul nods. I gotta be honest with you, Sleeper. I'm not quite buying it. He smiles. I'm not trying to make judgments on your character, but in my experience, people do things for more reasons than just being helpful. I have thousands of people here on the Pilgrim Seed, Sleeper, and there's thousands more out in the Flotilla. He leans against a railing. A lot of them are looking to me to provide some future for them, some path out of this dead end we've got into. And this cycle, this very cycle, the thing we've been running away from, just caught up with us. So these people are scared, Sleeper, and they're looking to me for reassurance. And then, on the same cycle, someone tells me they see you on board. A Sleeper, the same Sleeper, they reckon, that wanted so strongly to send a ship past the cordon to see us. Saul scratches at his beard. So the first thing I wanted to do was thank you for that. For your interest. He pauses. But the second thing I wanted to do was find out what you want from us. Saul's suit hisses and creaks. I think that's fair, don't you? Saul takes a deep breath. So, what is it? Let me help these people. Like, for real, this is the thing that's driving me. Let me help these people. And there's arguably a sort of like a selfish component to it. There's like a part of this that is wanting to have a community of people who view me as good, people who view me as like helpful, to whom we can, form some kind of relation. As well as just trying to prove to myself that like good things can still happen in the world, especially after how sideways things went with Ethan. But this really is it. This really is the motivation. Someone at a terminal calls out to Saul and he shouts some orders back. He turns to you. Apologies. He smiles that half smile. You really want to help? Well, I think I can make use of you. He squints. But you are going to see that things are a little more complicated than you might have thought. I may be the captain of the Pilgrim Seed, and she is certainly the biggest ship in this flotilla. But I'm not the only captain here. We have ships here from each of the moons. We're from Ember's Hearth, but there's others from Ember's Song and even Ember's Step. And the moons have been at each other's throats, Sleeper. What with the pressure of the flux, the bad blood from the old days. Saul leans in. We aren't exactly all in alignment. What I need is a way to stop things escalating. For the crews on these ships and their captains to feel happy and comfortable enough to forget old rivalries and past crimes. He flinches at something. And those from Ember's Step, well, they've always been proud. But that pride seems to be a barrier to compromise right now. The last set of supplies I sent their way, they refused. Meanwhile, I have a supply shuttle at the docking axis the Ember's Song ships gather at, but they've taken far too many cycles to unload. Maybe if you're heading that way, you can look in on them. I'm no politician, Sleeper, but if I don't... Saul stops. He leans back and flexes, his suit screeching. He groans a little, and you see the weight of the flotilla sitting on his shoulders, the suit the only thing keeping him vertical beneath all that pressure. Look, you'll see for yourself if you go. Meet the others, Sleeper. See what they need. Keep them aligned. He speaks through the pain, his voice clipped. Hey, are you okay? Well, not really. But as long as this thing holds. He grimaces. I hope, Saul grits his teeth, you are what you appear to be, Sleeper. He smiles his half smile despite the pain. 'Cause I'm not sure I can take any more bad news. Plus, there's plenty to be done here on the Pilgrim Seed, too. And if you have a moment to pitch in, there's never enough around here. That's something I've learned the hard way. Saul settles onto his cane, the pain visibly receding. Alright, I have 1,000 things to attend to now, Sleeper, so you'll have to find your own way out. And with that, Saul sits at his terminal with slow and careful movements. You head back down in the freight elevator, and as you do, you see again the layers and layers of chaotic life this vessel and all the vessels of the flotilla hold. Oof. Alright, so what's up on the Pilgrim Seed? Stability in the flotilla means relieving the pressure on the refugees from all 3 moons. We can supply more Matsutake here. We can also pass safe Intuit checks to just add support. Figuring out what jobs need doing first and who to help is a challenge. Okay, so we have a place to throw some low dice for the moment. Over here we can help unload supplies. The more you offload supplies into the docking bay, the more attention your efforts will gain. Okay, that makes sense. And then also we have even more scenes, because this game sure does have a lot of text in it, you know? It's a strange sight, given your time spent in the Greenway, to see a greenhouse choked in red dust. It piles up along edges, gathers in curving waves, and is carried by some unseen wind to whirl in front of the glass ceiling. It is a desert in miniature, a captured landscape of iron-rich sediment and unseen life. Beautiful, isn't it? The remark comes from another figure standing at the viewing window, so quietly you hadn't noticed them. Did they just arrive, or were they here before you were? Their cloth-swaddled form reveals little. I'm going to agree. I'm very vulnerable to suggestion. It is. They say nothing. You catch a glimpse of a pale face among the thick material, dark eyes glittering in the red reflected light. They turn to you as the dust swirls. Aki. They smile, a tight smile. Aki, maybe. You are not from the Flotilla, am I right? I live on the Eye. That's a canny way of answering that question. But that is not where you are from. She stares into the greenhouse. Everyone is from somewhere, whether they wish to be or not. The red dust glitters in her eyes, whether it is a good place to be from or not. Aki gathers her cloak around her shoulders against the cold. What brings you to the wind's long shadow? Maybe I don't want to volunteer that Saul sent me, given the hostilities. Wind's long shadow? The ship. Aki looks at you curiously. Do you often wander around ships you don't know the name of? You are a strange one. Aki raises an eyebrow. I don't know whether to report you or send you back to where you came from. She smiles to herself, which is nowhere at all. You glance around the empty corridor, suddenly aware of how quiet it is on this ship. Unlike the other ships you've been on, the Flotilla, unlike the other ships you have been to on the Flotilla, there is a silent order to the wind's long shadow, and in this moment it feels unsettling. Also, my life was just threatened. I'm aware of that as well. Where is everyone? Aki waves a hand. Asleep, mostly. It is night on Step, and so it is night here. She rubs her shoulders. At least, for those of us who can sleep. This is stupid. I know what Step is. Stay silent. Aki lets the silence sit, and you hear the wind and dust scratching at the viewing window. You hear a creak as a set of shutters slowly begin to close across the glass ceiling of the greenhouse. As you watch, you feel the dissonance this place has with that world. There is nothing green here. A dust house, perhaps. It takes many systems to preserve this landscape, Aki begins. To simulate the wind, cycle the dust, layer the sand and dirt beneath. You watch the dust swirling. Systems that are failing. The flux event, Aki glances at you for a sign of recognition at the term, is eroding our ability to keep this place alive, to keep these traces of Step alive. She smiles to herself. Which is ironic, because when we left Step, the flux had eroded our ability to survive on the moon. Now the situation is reversed. Away from the moon, its ecosystems are as fragile as we were living upon it. Something catches your eye as the shutters darken the dust house. The winds, picking away at the dunes, begin to reveal something. A web, a network of thick branching forms, and then they close completely, and you see nothing in the dark. Soft blue lights flicker on in the corridor, uplighting Aki in cold cyan. You have piqued my curiosity, but I'm so tired. Aki shivers. If you do not have a purpose here on the ship, I recommend finding one. Otherwise, I'm afraid you'll need to leave. Make yourself useful, and perhaps we will get another chance to talk. She turns. I would like that. With that, Aki pads away along the corridor. You stand for a moment in front of the dark dust house, trying to imagine the network of roots under the sand and dust, and then trying to imagine the moon that once housed them. So, systems repair here with interface checks. The crew won't let you into the dust houses proper, but there's plenty of supporting systems that could do with some love and care. Is there any, no work to do on this level. Alright, well, we have places to put dice, certainly. Let's throw this 4 at Mushroom Gathering. Alright, a couple of Matsutake. Let's give one of them to you, which will finish out this this thing here. Rico, what do you think? Rico meets you at the entrance to the lab, leaning on her crutch with a glint in her eye. Walk with me, Sleeper. I'd like to tell you a story. She makes her way down the corridor that leads back up toward the main commune building. When people first crossed what we call Founder's Gap into the Greenway, they did so against the wishes of Andre Erlin. At the time, Erlin was trying to stabilize the Union and establish control over the Eye in the wake of Solheim's collapse. It was chaos, competing factions, failing systems, so many dead and injured from the riots. That was his priority. You both crossed through a glass-roofed tunnel, the greenway outside crowded with vines and branches dappling the light. Erlin had written the greenway off. Cut off from the rest of the station and linked to a broken spoke, he claimed it was only a matter of time before everything here would die. He refused to let anyone abandon their duty to the Union and cross. They were traitors to the cause, or as good as. Rico continues, making her slow but steady way into the inner gardens of the commune. There weren't many of us, but we believed what was here was worth saving. We had to keep our plans secret until we crossed, and some of us left people behind. She pauses to catch her breath, her voice cracking. It is difficult to know from effort or emotion. What we found was a disaster, nothing like what you see here. Half of the greenway was leaking oxygen into space, the plants flash frozen. The other half was a swamp of mulch as decaying matter clogged every system. We worked hard, we lost good people, we cleaned up and closed up, but it was never going to be enough. After many, many cycles, we all knew this place was doomed, but we kept on working, talking less and less, because we couldn't face it. We all developed a death wish. If the Greenway was going to die, so would we. But then it didn't. It did not, Rico smiles. We crossed some invisible boundary, tipped some biological scale, and the Greenway started to recover. Plants flowered, crops sprouted. For the first time, we reaped the fruits of our labor. Rico smiles, looking up at you. We thought it was us, that we'd managed to do just enough to end the cycle of decay. I thought we had saved the Greenway. Until today. You pass into the grow beds of the commune, rich with the hustle and bustle of Haifa members planting and harvesting. For a while, Rico is quiet, and you both simply observe the hypnotic movements of the work crews, the eager chatter washing over you like a wave. Rico smiles to herself. I should have known, of course, that our arrogance was unfounded, but we needed to believe back then. We needed a myth to bring more people across the gap. You both move into a smaller corridor, Rico following some direction unknown to you. What you have shown me is that, back then, the Greenway saved us, not the other way around. Tell me, have you ever consumed one of the matsutake or garol caps you have been growing? Have we consumed anything from... I don't think we have. Right? We've eaten a lot of mushrooms. But yeah, I think it's all been stuff that came from elsewhere in the station. They can be difficult to prepare without proper equipment, she muses. But you should try them. After all, they were designed for you. Rico has a mischievous look. At first I thought it was the location they were grown in that made the mushrooms from the aviary, from the labs, or from the grove different from each other. But what I have come to understand is that it is the person growing them. The matsutake and garol caps you brought me are totally unique, containing compounds never usually found in similar specimens in my possession. Many of these compounds aren't even digestible for humans. But for a sleeper like you... Rico smiles as she leads you into the internal garden of the commune, where the Haifa members have planted species from all over the Greenway. You know, it is worth noting that we did give garol that we grew here to the people at the cordon. If that stuff's not digestible for humans, well, too late now, I guess. Back when the tide turned, when the Greenway started to recover, we all felt something. A response. It was as if this place was not just alive as a forest is alive, but alive in other ways. Communicative, responsive. We shrugged it off at the time, but now I understand why. Rico stops and turns to you. This place is responding to us, adapting itself to us. It is growing fruiting bodies for you, for me. It is adapting and changing. It is, in short, displaying all the signs of sentience. Yeah, there's a lot of that going around lately. How? That is what I wish to know too. What being is in control here? Rico sits on a bench within the peaceful gardens and gestures for you to join her. When you have been growing the garrulls and the matsutakes in the aviary, those species so familiar to the Greenway, have you discovered any others? Not yet. Rico nods. If you do, can I ask that you immediately bring them here? I believe it is only a matter of time before they bloom. You look around the garden, amazed at the sense of peace within it. Rico interrupts that silence. There is a species of mushroom that I haven't seen in years. It is dark, short, shaped like a club. We first found it in those early days when we were working to save this place. It was around the time that we started to lose our first members. They were succumbing to some infection, some mold growing deep in the dark mulch that drowned this place. At that point, we thought we were lost. And then these mushrooms emerged from that same black mold. We tested them and saw that they contained some compounds that counteracted the mold. They contained an antidote. Of course, as a botanist, I saw this as part of the natural processes of this ecosystem, even if the timescales seemed absurdly short. But what I am wondering is if that antidote was a gift. Rico meets your eyes. Perhaps if you are patient, you will receive your gift too, Sleeper. You both sit for a while, Rico seemingly done telling stories for today. You watch the light playing off the leaves and plants around you, and wonder what forces could be at play in this place. After a while, you stand and leave, with a quiet nod to Rico, leaving her to her memories. So yeah, from the previous playthrough, I know what she's talking about, and I know approximately how that's going to go, and we're going to come back and totally focus on that later. For right now, let's go ahead and throw this 2 into just general support above the Pilgrim Seed. It seems like there's a lot of work to do out here. Okay, the negative outcome is just +1 bar. You spend your time pulled in all directions and finish only 1 or 2 tasks. The scale of the work is overwhelming. I'm going to put a Matsutake in here. I want to see how much this gives us. Okay, 2. You hand over the Matsutake to those working the canteen. They are very grateful. There is still so much work to do. Alright. Let us just take a rest here. I think we'll just go back as far as Briar Base Camp and call that cycle. Oof, 511, huh? Alright. Well, I think this is where we're going to leave it for today. Thank you all so much for watching. It turns out there's just so much to get involved with out here. Even just on this tiny, like, we're focused on a pretty small part of the station as a whole. We've done no engineering work, no shipbuilding stuff at all. There's a lot going on with this flotilla. It is definitely going to have our attention for the foreseeable future. So when you come back next time, hopefully we can put these crummy dice to work for all those people somehow. And we'll see you then.